Hi guys, Pastor Ken here. Yesterday I announced that our search for a venue, after no longer being able to meet at Ridges on Swanson, has borne fruit, and that we are going to be meeting at the Clyde Hotel, which is near Melbourne University. It's on the corner of Elgin and Cardigan Street, and we're going to be calling our meetings at the Clyde Hotel PubChurch, and our first PubChurch is going to be on the 28th of February from 10:30 to 11:30, and then stick around for lunch afterwards. And PubChurch is going to be held every second and fourth Sunday of the month, and it's going to be part of our rhythm of how we do church, how we live out the mission that God's called us to live out. So the first Sunday is going to be Church 246, and that's our church planning initiative for the outer east, the outer west, and also the inner city. And that's the first Sunday. The second and fourth Sundays is going to be PubChurch, and the third Sunday is going to be online church. Now, PubChurch is part of our rhythm of monthly church life because it's the missional expression of our vision and our values, particularly for the inner city and the campus. Remember, Every Nation, we are a campus movement. And having church in a pub at first thinking about it, first hearing it, it might sound unconventional, it might seem uncomfortable, it might even feel inconvenient. But I want to remind us that that's what the missional life is: unconventional, uncomfortable, inconvenient. Jesus calls us to take up our cross, to follow Him, to lay down our lives for His sake and the gospel, for His sake and the mission. And I'm excited about PubChurch. The reason why I'm excited about it's got to do with my story. You know how I live my life. I live my life doing it, going on the journey with people all around me, non-Christians. I have dozens of non-Christians that I do life with, that I share the gospel to, and it occurred to me while searching for a new venue that I never once even thought about inviting these people that I literally preach the gospel to and invite into my life. I never once thought about inviting them to church at Ridges. And that was telling me something. I realized that what we were doing at Ridges is inherently alienating for non-Christians. And so on this journey of doing PubChurch, I've shared this with quite a few of my non-Christian friends that they're excited. They're excited for us. Some of them said, keep us in the loop. I want PubChurch. I want to go to that. And it's because it's kind of breaking the stereotype of what Christianity is all about. And I'm excited about anything that helps promote God's mission. So that's a little bit about my story. I'm excited to invite my friends who I've been sowing and investing in for years to come to PubChurch, because it's 1 hour. It's centered on God's story, the gospel, every single week. It's got food and drink involved as well. And pubs are places where Australians go to talk about life. That's where they decompress. It's where they de-stress, and it's where they enter into conversation and dialogue. And also, at 1 p.m. at the Clyde Hotel, there's a jazz band. It's 1 hour, God's story, it's food and drink. Then it's jazz afterwards for people who want to stick around. So I'm excited about inviting people to PubChurch. I hope that you are too. I hope that you'll come on this journey with me. And you might be thinking, well, Cam, PubChurch, it sounds like this is more aimed at non-Christians instead of Christians. And to that I would say, it's kind of true, yes, that's kind of true, but it's also for Christians. This is going to be more for non-Christians in a way, in a sense that it's going to be something I'm actually going to be inviting non-Christians to. So church at Ridges, we were preaching the gospel, we were worshiping God, absolutely. But there's just something that's alienating for non-Christians to come along to. And I think that PubChurch is going to be a lot more welcoming, a lot less of a barrier for people to actually hear God's story, to actually see God's family, God's community, His new humanity doing life together. And so, yes, in a way, it is kind of aimed more at non-Christians. It's for our mission, right? It's for the one that's out there. Leave the 99 in the wilderness, go after the one. However, it is for Christians as well. We're going to worship, we're going to preach the gospel, we're going to be involved in each other's lives and encourage one another. We're going to do communion together, right? We're going to have community and do communion together. So yes, it is aimed at non-Christians, but it's just as much for Christians as well. You might be thinking to yourself, but Ken, I'm not a student and I don't live in the inner city, and you're saying that PubChurch is the missional expression of the Every Nation vision and values for the inner city and the campus. I'm in neither of those categories. Well, I want to encourage you to come anyway. We need you. We need you to be a part. We need the wider family of God to be on board with this. And I think it's actually going to be an experience where you can see, maybe let's say you're from the outer suburbs and that you've got a career and you've got a young family. What's PubChurch going to offer you? I think it's going to show all of us, we're going to learn together what it is to put into place missional practices. You know, we do Church 246 in the outer east and in the outer west because we're believing to plant churches in the outer east and the outer west. But I'm believing to plant missional churches in the outer east and the outer west. Not just churches that go through the motions of doing what church is. You know, 4 worship songs, 2 fast songs, 2 slow songs, transition, type message, sermon, altar call. You know, if that's what God is calling churches to do, that's great. But for us, I believe that there's a missional expression. So there's principles and there's lessons to learn about what a missional expression looks like in the inner city and how that's going to look different, but be the same lessons, the same principles that are going to be applied so that non-Christians actually are not alienated as soon as they walk in through the doors of a church. So I think there's lessons to learn that are going to further the gospel being preached, not just in the inner city and the campus, but also in the outer suburbs as well. You might be thinking, well, Ken, that's great, but no one else is doing this. And yeah, that's fine. That's fair enough. You know, I'm not looking at what others are doing and going, that's wrong or whatever. I suppose for me, this is what God's put on my heart to do. And I'm excited that, you know, a lot of people aren't doing this, maybe because it does seem unconventional, maybe it does feel a little bit uncomfortable, maybe it is a little bit inconvenient. Well, I think that's the missional life as well. I think that's a price worth paying for the sake of having the people that I've been doing life with for years. Never once thought about inviting them to come to hear me preach at Ridges on Swanston. But instead now I'm excited, and they're saying, Ken, I want to come to see what you're doing at this PubChurch. I think that's worth doing something unconventional. I think that's worth doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable. I think that's worth doing something that's a little bit inconvenient, so that the gospel can be preached. And I'm doing that already in my everyday life with these guys. But the gospel community can be seen, and I want to invite my friends who I've shared the gospel with, who I've invited into my life. I want to invite them into my gospel family. I want to invite them to join with you and me together, and I think PubChurch is going to facilitate that. So those are some of the reasons why we're doing PubChurch. And next video I want to put out is just kind of like the details, the how, what about Kid Church, all that kind of stuff. And so stay tuned for that tomorrow. Thanks guys. As always, I'm Pastor Ken. Be blessed.
Church. Here I am at our new location, so I'm going to take you for a look around inside the